Naš prvi izlagač u ovoj prvoj sesiji jeste dr. Renate Pillinger iz Beča i njeno predavanje, odnosno izlaganje je Selected Pictorial Representations of the Concilium NICAENUM in 325 AD. Here you are, you can start.
I'm here, yes.
Okay.
Now I want to show you some pictorial representations of the 325 AD Council of Nicaea. In accordance with the significance of this event, there are numerous depictions in a variety of art genres and regions. Some of these will be offered here in order to illustrate what the more recent pictorial representations, it's not the same time as the council, more recent, tell us about the first ecumenical council. This is all the more interesting when we take into account that no minutes were taken at the council itself and no records have been handed down. The iconographic visual arrangement of most of the representations reflect the so-called philosopher's circle with the emperor who is indicated by the crown and nimbus and is seated in the center with several bishops to the left and right. You will see soon. According to the Byzantine viewpoint, the emperor is an administrator appointed by God, also in matters of the faith. His central position, and above all, his seat on the throne, identify him as the primary person in the event. The fundamental idea underlying the layout is the cooperation between church and state, and thereby the unity of the empire. The heretic Arius, sometimes labeled with his name, often covers below the foreground. You see also here. Dating to the beginning of the 11th century, the painting in the refectory of the Bachkovsky Monastery in Bulgaria serves as an example of this. In this painting, Emperor Constantine I is seated in the center, pictured with a crown and nimbus, as well as a Latin cross in his right hand. He is flanked by two bishops on both his left and right, while the heretic Arius, as I said, lies on the floor in front of him. A full range of council cycles are depicted in various churches and monasteries. The sun is not so good for the pictures, such as in the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem. There, however, only a small fragment of the representation of Nicaea has survived, for which reason we will not go into greater detail here. 7 ecumenical councils were likewise depicted in St. Sophia's Church in Kiev. Also, only the first one has remained intact. The first ecumenical council of Nicaea is presented also in the Kiev Cave Monastery. Sorry, because of the sun. Showing Emperor Constantine mightily enthroned in the center of the image. An icon from the Megalometeoron Monastery depicts Emperor Constantine in front of a church, Hagia Sophia, you can read here. Once more, he is positioned in the center, is shown with nimbus, wears a crown and holds a scroll. The emperor is surrounded by bishops holding books of the Gospels, while the heretic Arius covers at his feet on the ground. From the Museum of the Alexandria Patriarchate, another representation shows Emperor Constantine enthroned in the midst of the Council Fathers, with Jesus above him under a baldacchino, and the condemned Arius at his feet, covering his ears. An icon of Michael Damaskinos from 1591 has a tabernacle with an open gospel book in the center of the assembly. Also not Constantine I, sondern but an open gospel book in the center, and an altar with Christ and the Eucharistic gifts above it. To the right is the emperor with nimbus and crown. To the left is Pope Sylvester with tiara. Bishops are seated in 3 rows. In a fresco by Speranza, dating around 1600 and located in the Sistine Hall, Grande Sala Sistina of the Vatican, Emperor Constantine is seated to the far left in the front. Here, you see, in the far left, in the front. Quasi in dextro cornu, just as the primary figure in an ancient depictions of the banquet would be shown. In the center we see again the open book of the Gospel. Some icons, but only some, such as one from the Mount Athos, left you see, or one in the Chiesa Santissimo Salvatore in Cosenza, show Emperor Constantine and bishops unrolling the text of Nicene Creed. In the Russian Typikon, liturgical calendar, we find the council depicted on July 16, rather than the saint of the day. A resurrected Christ standing on a cloud at the top left of the picture makes it clear that the topic is the first in the council series. You see here the resurrected Christ, Jesus Christos, on a cloud, namely the first Nicaenum. There is another crucial detail in the right foreground in the image, namely the death of Arius. According to Socrates, Historia Ecclesiastica 38, his death was caused by the discharge of his entrails from his body. This and similar details can be found in almost all church historians, including Rufinus and Sozomenos. They date back to Athanasius' letter to Serapion, with new details added time and again. The depiction of this terrible death, which did not take place until 11 years after the council, can also be found in quite a few other images, such as the Russian icon. It's only one example here, and you see it's more detailed also. Since the death of Arius did not occur until 336, one wonders why he was included in the depictions of the council. It can probably be assumed that he was intended as a warning to all those who did not follow Orthodox doctrine. In the center of a 19th century icon, we see a person seated at a table with candles, surrounded by council members. Here the person on the table and the council members. The Christ child stands under a baldacchino behind him. in the midst of the council participants, and next to him is the Patriarch Petros of Alexandria. Emperor Constantine is seated in front of him. The presbyter Arius stands at the very front next to a figure wearing dark garments and without a halo. Here you see Arius next to a figure. According to legend, Nicholas of Myra is said to have slapped the opponent Arius. Yes, you hear, it's exactly like this. This is precisely this detail depicted here in the icon. It can also be found on other icons. Also, this is only a legend. It certainly demonstrates that the discussion of Nicaea were not always peaceful. Interestingly enough, this scene has even spread into a graffiti in Beograd. I thought I must take this example also. On an icon from the Hilandar Monastery on Mount Athos, Arius is once more dressed in black. See him here. The Basilica of St. Nicholas in Myra, today's Demre in Lycia, Turkey, depicts the First Ecumenical Council. Also, it differs from the images presented here at the beginning, in that it shows the cross in the center, not the book, not the emperor, but the cross. It's the only one I could find. I want to summarize shortly. The basic form is the roundel with the emperor or the Holy Scriptures, the Blessed Sacrament or the cross in the center, surrounded by the council participants, bishops. The text of the Creed is, as I said, rarely rolled out. In some cases, however, additional details are depicted which are based in legends, such as the death of Arius or Nicholas of Myra's slap to the face. As we see, the pictorial representations are nevertheless quite informative for the later interpretation of the First Ecumenical Council of Nicaea, today's Iznik in Turkey. Hvala lijepo.
Hvala vama. Thank you for your